Hello, welcome to the community conversation for October the 21st of 2020. I am Pastor Park Hutter, and I need to mute my phone. I'll be your host for today. Our conversation topic is elections, and we're glad to have you with us. This is a joint effort of the Interfaith Leaders Coalition of the La Crosse area and English Lutheran Church, and we're grateful to them for serving as our hosts and providing the technology. We're going to be taking questions today, and so if you want to post a question, you can put it in the chat on the YouTube live stream. You do need to be logged in with your Google or Gmail account in order to be able to do that, and I'll be sharing those questions with our guest later. This is one of a series that takes place on the third Wednesday of each month, and in November, our topic will be COVID-19, and we'll be hosting some of our local health leaders to join us and lead that conversation. So we hope you can join us for that. Right now, I'm going to introduce Reverend Glenn Bickford, who is the pastor of English Lutheran, and he's going to offer a prayer as we begin.
Thank you, Park. Let's pray. God of hope, you know the division that remains in this country over power, control, and values. Help us in this hour and in the weeks to come to calm the rancor between red states and blue states, between Republicans and Democrats, between friends and neighbors, and among family members. Open our hearts to your peace so that we may listen fully to each other and carefully to each other. Help us to speak wisely about what we ourselves believe, so that we might work together in government and elsewhere to solve this nation's problems as one united people. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Glenn. To introduce our speaker today, I'm going to welcome Rick Kite, who is the director of the D.B. Reinhardt Center for Ethics at Viterbo University. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Park. Many of you who are attending this event virtually will remember Reed Magney. He was a longtime reporter for the La Crosse Tribune here. He worked for the Tribune for 15 years before moving to Madison to join the Government Accountability Board. Then in 2009, the Government Accountability Board changed in 2016, they changed their name to the Wisconsin Elections Commission. So Reed is now the spokesperson for the Wisconsin Elections Commission. He's been very busy, as you might imagine, during the lead up to this year's election. And we're really grateful to you, Reed, for joining us and telling us more about what the Elections Commission does, what the status is of election preparation in the state, and also answer some of our questions.
Thanks very much, Rick, Park, and Glenn. I'm very happy to be here with you all. For some reason, my speakers aren't working, so I had to put on my headphones so I can hear what everybody else was saying. And I'm sort of locked in on this, so it's going to look a little bit strange with me wearing this, but bear with me. So again, very nice to be with you all in La Crosse. I love La Crosse. I lived there for 15 years. My wife and I miss it, and we always enjoy getting back. And it's nice to be back, at least virtually, with you all. Today I'd like to talk with you a little bit about election information, misinformation, and disinformation. My job title is the Public Information Officer at the Wisconsin Elections Commission. That means it's my job to talk to the media. It's my job to develop public education information. I also do some work running our website and supporting the commission. I've been doing this since July of 2009, first with the Government Accountability Board. We had like 6 retired judges who were our citizen oversight board. In 2015, the legislature sought fit to change that and to create a separate elections commission and an ethics commission. I went to work for the elections commission in basically the same role. We've been in place since basically the beginning of July of 2016. The Elections Commission also is a sort of a 6-member body. There are 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. Those 4 of those people are appointed by legislative leaders. So the Speaker of the Assembly, the Minority Leader of the Assembly, each appoint one person. The Senate Majority Leader appoints one, and the Senate Minority Leader appoints one. And then we also have 2 former clerks, one county clerk, one municipal clerk. Those are appointed by the governor, but they're appointed from lists given to the governor by the political party. So we have one Republican clerk and one Democratic clerk, former clerk. And it's been very good to have their perspective on things as well in that time. Our commission very often operates by consensus. We have a lot of 6-0 votes. Occasionally, we also have some 3-3 votes or 4-2 votes, and that can sometimes be interesting. Our commissioners bring a perspective with them to these, that they are essentially representing their party and representing the people who appointed them from the legislature when they come to look at things. So something, just like in any kind of politics, you get some disagreements. So, but the staff of the Elections Commission, and there's about 40 of us, are all nonpartisan. Our administrator is Megan Wolf. She's Wisconsin's chief election official. In a lot of states, the chief election official is the Secretary of State. But in Wisconsin, that hasn't been the case since, I believe, 1973. After Watergate, there was a lot of good government reform that happened around elections and campaign finance. And so at that time, the legislature put things in the hands of an independent citizen board, which that time was the State Elections Board. And they had that from 1973 until 2008. Then the Government Accountability Board from 2008 to 16. And then now from 16 to the present, it's been the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Our offices are in Madison, but as you might guess, I'm coming to you from my home on Madison's east side. I've been working here just about every day since March. I've been to the office once, and that was to pick up this headset so I could take calls on my computer at home. So let's talk a little bit about election preparations, information, disinformation, misinformation. So, unlike a lot of other states, Wisconsin doesn't, for example, put out voter guides to the public. In other states, if you're a registered voter, you'll get something in the mail. It looks like a newspaper or a booklet that has all of the information about all the candidates and where to vote and even what the candidates' positions are, things like that. Wisconsin has, for some reason, never done that. Usually, we've had a very strong local media, I think it's been sort of, if the media is already doing a good job of telling us about candidates, let's let them continue doing that. So that's never something that's been done. So, our information is, we do several different things. We have a website, which is elections.wi.gov, where there's a lot of voter information there. Several years ago, we put together a specific voter information and voter services portal, which is myvote.wi.gov. We've done a lot of work on that website to make sure it's usable and understandable for people. The focus of that website is, looking up, am I registered to vote? Where is my polling place? What's going to be on my ballot? It's been expanded so you can actually register to vote on that website now, as long as you have a Wisconsin driver license or a state ID card. You can do all that registration right there online. If you don't have one of those things, say you're using a passport or something like that for your photo ID, you can start the voter registration process online but you have to print out a form and bring that with you to your clerk's office or to your polling place. You can also request an absentee ballot online at myvote.wi.gov. We were in a situation where very few people did that prior to March of this year. Normally only about 6% of people vote absentee by mail. Most of the other absentee voting that happened in Wisconsin was people going to clerk's offices and absentee voting there, which is what they could start to do yesterday. So we went from about 6% of people using that process, and even less of those using our website to make those requests, because people would do it by mail or whatever, to in April we had 60% of the vote cast by absentee ballot by mail. And so a lot of things that we had done for that website, I will be honest with you, we hadn't concentrated very much on the absentee request process because very few people were using it. People were more concerned about where's my polling place. We put a lot of effort into making sure that that worked, into the voter registration, because a lot of people were doing that. So after April, we realized that a lot of people were going to be doing that. And so we spent a lot of time and effort revamping that absentee ballot application process, as well as the back office stuff for the clerks, to make sure that when they get your absentee ballot request, they don't have to do a lot of busy work. I think one of the clerks after the election in April said she had to do like 18 different things or click on 18 different things to get somebody's application into the system. We simplified that. So now the clerks have one queue of pending applications. They can go right through, look at the photo IDs, approve them, bing, bing, bing. And that is, so that's made things easier for the clerks too. So, and the other thing that we do is on the My Vote Wisconsin website is we allow you to track your absentee ballot. So from the moment you make your request, you can see that the request is in there. You can see when it's been approved. You can see when your ballot has been sent. You'll even see when the expected arrival date is for your ballot, almost like when you order a pizza on Domino's. And then once you send your ballot back, that'll be checked into the system as well, and you'll see that your ballot has arrived back. Or if there's some sort of problem, you'll see an orange box instead of a blue box that says, please contact your clerk's office to fix this problem, or your absentee ballot has been sent back to fix a particular problem. We wanted to do that, again, just to make sure that people could get information about where their ballot was, what was going on, so there wouldn't be a lot of questions. And so far, I think that's been a success. Excuse me. We have also done a lot of work to educate the public about absentee voting, specifically because before April, so few people had. But in April, we had about 1 million people voting absentee ballots, and we knew that that number would likely increase for November. So we spent a lot of time over the summer putting together a public information program to help people understand the absentee voting process. After this presentation, if you'd like, please visit our website, and the URL is pretty simple. It's elections.wi.gov/2020. And on that page, you will see a series of 6 videos. There's actually 2 more coming about voting in 2020. But that really walks you through the whole absentee voting process. What is an absentee ballot? How do you get one? Once you've got it, how do you fill it out? How do you return it? And then, is it secure? How is it counted? So, we have these, they're sort of very nice animated videos. There's also several fact sheets on that page, as well as a lot of other information. And one of the things we use to guide us in putting together these videos is market research that we did last year. We actually surveyed more than 1,000 Wisconsin voters. We did a series of focus groups all over the state. And we just wanted to know what people thought about election security and about, as well as absentee voting. And, you know, one of the things we learned is that a lot of people thought that if the election wasn't close, or that absentee ballots don't get counted, right? Because like, who needs them? We know who won, so don't bother counting the absentee ballots. Well, of course, every ballot always gets counted, but for some reason, people made assumptions that wasn't the case. We also, learned other things about, doubts or questions that people had about how absentee ballots are counted, what the security is around them. So all of those, or many of those things are addressed in that specific, in those videos. So, so I think if you have questions about that, please take a look at those things. Feel free to share them on your social media, your Facebook page, whatever. That would be really helpful. Going into this year, we knew that there was going to be misinformation out there, that, and also the possibility of disinformation. Misinformation is really just basically wrong information about voting. And most of it is really unintentional, or, either somebody didn't know and they guessed, or they were careless or something like that, or they were relying on old information. Wisconsin's election laws have changed quite a bit over the years. There have been different court cases, other things like that. And sometimes there's old websites out there, or old web pages out there, or people, something that was true in 2015 is no longer true. But people still have old brochures, old information. They're, so there's misinformation out there. Disinformation comes, when somebody is really trying to put out a lie, or to misdirect people, or to mislead them. And sometimes disinformation can take the form of somebody sharing misinformation. Somebody put something out there that's not correct. They didn't realize it's not correct. And then other people sort of seize on that and twist it a little bit, or, just even retweeting stuff that they, know to be false. So it's not a huge problem, but it is one. And so, I think one of the things, we want people to know is that they can trust information that comes from the Wisconsin Elections Commission, that comes from their local municipal clerk or their county clerk. Those are the people who really know what's going on. There are other groups out there who are trying to be helpful. Very often the information that they put out there, groups like the League of Women Voters, usually the political parties also have accurate information because they're in touch on things. But there are other groups, from whether it's from out of state, or, if we have, just other groups trying to help, and those aren't always accurate. We had groups from California texting Wisconsin voters earlier this year saying, it appears that you're not registered to vote, register to vote. And people are starting wondering, where are these people getting getting these names? Why do they have my phone number? I'm registered to vote. Was my name purged off the list? And sometimes this happens because these groups buy, mailing lists from data houses, and, they're not up to date, or they give accurate lists to volunteers who mess things up. Like they're getting the wrong names and things into the, as they're texting. Their groups aren't allowed to send out mass texts. They have to actually have volunteers doing that texting. And sometimes those people mess up. They're human too. So those sorts of things create misinformation. There are groups out there that mail out absentee ballot request forms, or voter registration forms. And sometimes they try to get cute and, partially fill those things out with your name and your address. And sometimes the names aren't correct, or the addresses aren't correct, or the address where you're supposed to send it back is not correct. You know, La Crosse County, so I'll just mention that since you guys are there, a lot of you people are there, has a town of Washington. There are a bunch of other towns of Washington in Wisconsin. There are other towns of Lincoln. And, you know, the people doing this data work don't always realize that, and things get mixed up, and so people get wrong information. Sometimes they want to believe that somebody is actually intentionally trying to mislead them. And we've really seen very little of that with the mailers and the phone calls. You know, people don't spend all that time and money doing something just to mess people up usually. Now, lately I have heard of some phone calls going out telling people, you know, it's not safe to be out, and so don't go out and vote and things like that. If you get a text like that or a phone call like that, please disregard it. No clerk's office or official is going to be sending you out that kind of information. So I don't know, are you guys ready to take some questions, or how are we doing on questions?
We have a few, and I suspect once we ask some of these that the pump will be primed and we'll hear some more. So I'm going to begin with a question from Wesley White, who is curious to know, when are the early voting and absentee votes counted and reported?
So we can't start counting absentee ballots or any ballots in Wisconsin until Election Day. Some states, when you send it back, they start processing it right away. But in Wisconsin, we can't start until 7 a.m. on Election Day. So if you voted by absentee, that means that your clerk can sort your ballot, you know, sort all the ballots out, make sure they go to the right place. They can check things to make sure that the certificate envelope has correct information, that you've signed it, that your witness has signed it, and your witness has provided an address. Those three things are really important. And if you don't have those, your clerk will contact you and let you know there's a problem. So, but all of those ballots have to be sorted out and sent out mostly to the polling place where you normally would have voted. But the poll workers at your polling place can't start opening those envelopes, pulling the ballots out, flattening them out, getting them ready to go into the scanner until 7 a.m. on Election Day.
Reed, there's been a lot of give and take about when or how long absentee ballots that are mailed in can be received. And I'm actually not sure what the current status in Wisconsin is. Do they have to be in the clerk's office by Election Day, or just postmarked by Election Day, or?
So Wisconsin has never in its law had something that allows most people to have their ballot postmarked by Election Day. Some other states do that, but Wisconsin did it only in limited cases for like military and overseas voters. But they even changed that a few years ago. So currently in Wisconsin, your ballot has to be back to your polling place by 8 p.m. In order to be counted. And if it's not, then it won't be counted. So if you are somebody who gets your ballot last minute or something like that, you know, make sure that you get it to your polling place by 8 p.m. or, you know, your clerk's office very early in the day, because, you know, depending upon the size of your city, you know, the clerk's office may have to, you know, run your ballot out from City Hall out to, you know, a distant polling place, and that can take time. And you don't want to be there, you know, dropping your ballot off at your clerk's office at 7 p.m. because the chances of it making to the polling place by 8, maybe they can do it, but I certainly wouldn't count on that.
All right, thank you. Dave asks about mail-in voting. He's got some concerns about the mass mailing of mail-in ballots to homes that just doesn't seem to be necessary, he says, and he's concerned that it might be open to mischief or mishaps.
So Wisconsin doesn't mass mail ballots to homes. There are some other states like Washington and Oregon, Colorado, that have gone to basically an almost all by mail voting system. And they spent, you know, in some cases a decade figuring out how, you know, the best way to do that. Wisconsin has not gone there. I don't know if our state ever will, that's a political decision that the legislature is going to have to make, or would have to make if they were going to make a change. So every person who gets an absentee ballot has actually had to request one. And most of those people have had to provide a copy of their photo ID when they make the request. We don't just send them out. Now, some people get confused because you're going to get a lot of absentee ballot applications in the mail. If you didn't already have one on file, you probably got one from us somewhere around early September. That was the first time we did that. We did it to make sure that people would have that if they wanted it, but that is not an absentee ballot. And there's no place in Wisconsin that sends out absentee ballots to everyone. That's against the law.
Hey, thank you. Andrea wants to know if a U.S. resident from a state other than Wisconsin can be a witness for a Wisconsin absentee ballot. Apparently, this has come up at work with coworkers from 3 different states.
So yes, your witness has to be a U.S. citizen, 18 years of age or older. And the only other caveat is that it can't be somebody whose name is on the ballot. So if somebody who's running for assembly or senate in your area comes to your door, you can't ask them to be your witness. But otherwise, just anybody who's 18 and a U.S. citizen can do it.
All right, thank you.
Make sure you put that person's address on there. In addition to getting the signature, get the address.
Excellent. You mentioned earlier that we can track our absentee ballots online. Does that cue us if we've made a mistake in terms of getting a witness signature or missing an address or things like that?
Yes, it will. So normally the boxes, when you start out, you get one blue box that your request has been there and the rest are gray. And as each step in the process goes, the boxes turn from gray to blue and tell you that your ballot has been sent, that what the expected delivery date is, and then when it's come back. If there's a problem, you'll see an orange box at the end that says your ballot has been sent back to you, or that you should contact your clerk's office in order to fix a problem.
Excellent.
And the other thing is that the clerk's office will probably try to reach out to you as well, depending upon what information that they have. Some people have a phone number or an email address on file with the clerk, and the clerk will try to get a hold of you that way. But if you don't have that information in there, then they may just have to, mail it back to you.
That they can do in advance because that's not processing the
Correct.
Actual ballot. That's just sorting and filing. This is me. I'm just a little curious. What's it like serving on a bipartisan commission in this very partisan era that we're in?
Well, so I am nonpartisan, but the 6 members of the commission are partisan: 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and it's certainly been interesting. Before, with the Government Accountability Board, everybody was nonpartisan. Now we have to say, well, we're bipartisan, and then we're nonpartisan. I would say it's been interesting. There have been times when our commission is deadlocked, and it makes us, we have to make sure that we're basically trying to be straight down the middle, not favoring either party. And so I think that's been good. I saw Rick asked a question about whether we investigate cases of voter fraud. And the answer is not really. Voter fraud is, well, we can do it in conjunction with local law enforcement, but voter fraud is a criminal matter. It's a violation of Chapter 12 of Wisconsin statutes, and the primary responsibility for that rests with police, with district attorneys, those sorts of things. We do that. We assist law enforcement sometimes, but really those cases are with law enforcement.
All right, Rick, I know you're still in the conversation here, and I think you've probably got a few questions you'd like to pose as well.
Yeah, thank you, Park. Reed, I'm wondering if the absentee ballots in Wisconsin are not counted until election day, will that cause a delay in the final results for the state? And when can we expect to get final results reported?
Well, final official results won't come until December 1. But the unofficial results that people are used to seeing on election night, like turning on your TV at 10 o'clock for the news and seeing, gee, candidate A is way ahead of candidate B. And, and so the Associated Press or somebody has called this election, chances are you're not going to see that at 10, probably not at midnight. I don't know exactly what time. The director of the Milwaukee County Election Commission said recently that she thinks that they'll have final results for Milwaukee County sometime between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Wednesday. We don't know for sure. There's an issue that cropped up just very recently in Outagamie County where they're going to have to do a kind of a technical fix on some ballots that had a printing error that could cause some issues there, getting late result, getting in final results, final unofficial results. So it will take longer this year. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong or that anybody's doing something untoward. It means that election officials are doing their job, making sure that the results are correct.
So a follow-up, how much authority do the clerks in the various counties have over the election, the process of collecting the votes and counting them and reporting them? Does the Wisconsin Elections Commission have a role in validating or overseeing that process, or is that up to each county?
So Wisconsin statutes provide most of the guidance and procedures that clerks at the municipal and the county level follow. There is not a lot of wiggle room. Counties can't necessarily decide to do things, a certain way if it doesn't follow the law. So the Elections Commission's job is to make sure that everybody understands those rules and how that's done. So we have sort of a three-step process for validating election results. At your polling place at 8 o'clock, once the polls close, there is actually a local board of canvassers that meets. And the local board of canvassers is made up really of the poll workers there. And they canvass the results there. They will announce them publicly. That's an open public meeting, by the way, that anybody can attend. If you are curious to see how your ward voted, you're welcome to go back at 8 o'clock, and they have an open public meeting there. You can hear them announce the results. If you want to, you can get out your cell phone and take a picture of the tape that comes out of the machine, and you can compare that, an hour or two later to the results that get posted on your county's website and make sure that those numbers match up. So there's that initial work that gets done at the municipal level. Those results then get passed on to what's known as a county board of canvassers. And that's a three-person board that's made up of your elected county clerk, one person from the same party as the clerk, and one person from the opposite party. So in La Crosse County, I believe Jenny Dankmeyer is a Democrat, so there'd be another Democrat and then one Republican. And that group then is going to meet the week after the election usually, and they go through all of the results from all the cities, villages, and towns in the county, and they put them all together. They double check all the numbers, and then they certify those results, and they certify those to the state. And then they make their report to us at the Elections Commission, and then our staff then goes through all of those numbers and really does the sort of the third check on that. So all the results are triple checked. Beyond that, we also do some audits. Every county, there's a clerk in every county who's going to get an email from us right after the election that says, lucky you've been selected to do an audit. And we're going to audit 5% of all of the polling places in the state. Those places are randomly selected. Nobody knows who's going to be audited. when those clerks get a notice to audit, they're going to have to hand count all of the ballots from a specific ward twice. And that's done to make sure that the voting equipment is accurately counting the ballots. And the numbers have to match up correctly. They cannot be off by as little as one. And, or if they do, there has to be an explanation of, what error happened and why that is. And we do that every year, we do that after every November election, and the Wisconsin Elections Commission will not certify the statewide results until all of those audits are done. It's usually roughly around 200 audits around the state.
We've got a couple more questions from our folks that are following on chat. And for those of you who are following the live stream, I'll just encourage you, go ahead and post those questions on chat. Know that we're monitoring that, and it may take a few minutes, but we'll post them when we get a chance. So Mary would like to know if a clerk can be a witness on absentee ballot.
So yes, they can do that, but they have to basically watch you vote. Your witness doesn't see how you vote, but they have to be there to see that you've got a blank ballot, that it's you who's marking it, that it's you who's putting it in the envelope. And the clerks serve that function when you go to your clerk's office to vote in person absentee before the election. But if you voted at home and you sealed everything up, and you just take it to the clerk's office and say, "Clerk, can you be my witness?" They're going to say no, because I didn't see that it was you voting it. So they can't do that, but they can be a witness if you are voting absentee in your clerk's office.
Okay. There's a question about what would happen if somebody sent an absentee ballot into La Crosse, but then went to vote in, say, Bayfield or some other community.
Well, so remember, in order to vote, you have to be registered. And we have a statewide database that tracks, that has all the voter registrations. And if you register to vote in one place, so say somebody was registered to vote in La Crosse and they decided to go to Bayfield, or even just, up to Trempealeau County, to, found a place there and walked in and said, "I want to register to vote." First, in order to register, you're going to have to provide proof of residence. You're going to have to prove that you live in that community to begin with. And then if you do register to vote there, you're going to do so with you have to provide your driver license information, et cetera. When that information gets put into the system, they're going to see, oh, wait, this person is also registered in La Crosse. Oh, wait, this person voted in 2 places. Oh, let's contact the district attorney. This is something that happens very rarely, but it does occasionally happen. It is caught, it is prosecuted.
All right.
Now, do we have a way to prevent that from happening in real time? No, we don't. There is no, each polling place is not connected to, the internet to have real-time updates. No, we don't have that. But if you do it, that information will get entered into the system. The system is designed to look for duplicates or potential matches. You will be caught.
All right, thank you. Jennifer says the whole country has issues with regular poll workers during COVID, as many are retired and are concerned about exposure. So she's curious to know if there is still time to volunteer and be trained to work the polls.
So yes, there is. There are places that do need poll workers. I would encourage you to go to myvote.wi.gov and take a look and see if your community needs poll workers. I'm just going to I'm at the website right now. I'm looking it up. I'm looking at La Crosse County. So the town of Holland needs some work, needs some poll workers. So you can go to there. The clerk's email address is clerk@townofhollandwi.org, and you can call up or email. You can call. Her number is 526-3354, and see if you can be a poll worker. You don't have to live in the town of Holland to be a poll worker, but you do have to live in La Crosse County to be an official poll worker. If every place in your county has enough people and you want to go work in another county, you could be a greeter, you could help with line management, you can, man the hand sanitizer pump, those sorts of things, help with social distancing, but you can't actually serve as an election inspector who handles ballots and, checks IDs and that kind of stuff.
There's been some talk in the news about encouraging people to go and watch the polls to make sure nothing nefarious happens. What does that look like? Is that a good idea? Is that even legal?
Yes, it is legal, and it's actually encouraged. Wisconsin encourages people to be what's known as election observers, sometimes called poll watchers. Traditionally, poll watchers have been people, for example, from the political parties. Like, your county party maybe has a list of people who it knows are its regular supporters, and they'll send somebody down there to watch who comes in. And if John Smith, who they know is a supporter, hasn't shown up by dinner time, somebody will get on the phone to John Smith and say, "Hey, John, are you going to come and vote? Can we give you a ride?" That sort of thing. So, I mean, that's very often what poll watchers do if they're there on behalf of a political party. But you also have groups like the League of Women Voters who are there, just sort of watching things, how things are going, looking for potential problems. There's other groups there's a group called Election Protection that goes out there and, will, offer to help people if they're having difficulty. So there are those sorts of groups. If you're just an average citizen and want to see how things work, you're welcome to go down there. Hey, even if you're not a citizen, you can go down there. You don't have to be a citizen. If you want to see, if you're working towards citizenship and want to see what it's like, you're welcome to do that too. The key is that when you show up, find the chief inspector at the polling place, tell them you're there to be an observer. They'll have you show an ID, they'll have you sign in, and they'll show you where to sit. And you're welcome to sit there as, basically as long as you want. You can be on your phone, but you cannot be shooting video or pictures of people coming in. You can't be talking on your phone. You can't be causing a disturbance. You can't be all up in the poll workers' business, telling them how you think they ought to do their job. You can't be approaching voters as they're coming in or talking to voters. If somebody comes in and they're having a problem and they leave, you're free to follow them and offer them some help or something like that. But while people are in line, you shouldn't be interacting with them or waiting to vote. You shouldn't be interacting with them. If you think that there is a problem or something like that, go find the chief inspector and talk to that person. But don't be causing a disturbance. But otherwise, you're welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Reed.
The only other thing that I would say is that because of COVID-19, there will be some, there may be some restrictions. There may be some social distancing required. There may be some other things. They may only have room for a certain number of people. So just take that into account as well.
Excellent. Rick, did you have another question?
Yes. The main reason that there's such an interest this year in sending in absentee ballots is the concerns over the spread of COVID at the polls. And so I'm wondering if the Wisconsin Election Commission has been involved in health precautions to keep people safe, or if that's up to the counties and like what precautions are being taken.
So we have been very involved in this. Let me tell you how involved we've been with this. Back before April, our administrator, Megan Wolf, was basically getting distilleries here in Madison to produce 140 proof vodka so that could be bottled up and sent out in spray bottles to polling places all over the state. So That's that's how involved we got with this, because clerks back in April couldn't find hand sanitizer, couldn't find other things. Our commission has allocated up to $500,000 for polling place supplies, whether that's masks, clean pens, painter's tape to mark off 6-foot distancing on the floors, and then hand sanitizer, alcohol wipes, other kinds of things. We've worked very closely with the National Guard and the State Emergency Operations Center to get those materials distributed to counties, which then distributed them to the cities, villages, and towns. The Civil Air Patrol got involved, flying this stuff around the state to different clerks. So we've been very involved in it. That's beyond just that physical, the stuff you use to make sure that you're sanitary. We've also worked very closely with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services to develop guidance for what needs to be done at polling places, for all the procedures, for how to social distance, how to make sure that everything is clean, that everything that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple questions here about absentee ballots. So if
Sure.
somebody requests an absentee ballot, but then in the meantime they decide that they'd really rather vote in person, do they have to fill out the absentee ballot and send it in, or can they just throw it away and go vote as they usually do?
So if you request an absentee ballot, but you don't return it, you're free to go to the polling place on election day, or even if you want to go to your clerk's office to vote absentee early. Now, the clerk might get a little peeved at you because, it may have cost her a couple bucks to send you that absentee ballot, and then you're not using it. So, but sure, you can do that. As long as you haven't returned your absentee ballot, you can go to the polls on election day. Now, there's going to be a watermark on your name that says that you were issued an absentee ballot. And the poll workers are going to ask you, did you return that ballot? And if you say no and sign the poll book, then you'll get a ballot. If you have returned your absentee ballot, it's also going to say that on the poll book. It'll note that. And then they will not give you a ballot. But even if you have sent your absentee ballot in, you can essentially cancel that ballot in advance. I believe you have until the Thursday before the election to do that. So you can do that if you want. Seriously though, if your ballot is back in the clerk's office, you can see on the My Vote Wisconsin website that your ballot is back. Think about, do you really need to go? I mean, you can certainly if you want to, but so yes, you can do that.
And a couple times you've been really careful to remind people that they have to get a witness signature and that the witness has to put their address on the envelope. What if somebody makes a mistake? If they they don't get a witness signature or there's no address, what happens to that ballot?
Well, so the clerk is going to, hopefully you get that back in time so the clerk notices the error and can let you know about it and get you to fix it. So if, say you had a witness and the witness forgot to put her address on it, you can get that witness to sign that. If you didn't have any witness at all, then that's a problem. The clerk is going to need to issue you a new ballot, and you're going to need to get a witness for that. You may also have the option of just spoiling that ballot and going into to vote in person.
Just before we started going live here, we were chatting a little bit, and you mentioned that your phone's been ringing off the hook with calls from media, not just in Wisconsin, but all over the country. What are the big questions that they're interested, especially the national media, that they're calling to ask you about?
They want to know how elections work in Wisconsin, and they want to know, they want to know about our basic procedures. For some reason, just about every major news outlet wants to put together some kind of a guide about how voting works, and they're doing them themselves. So they're interviewing me about how it works. Then once they put it together, they're sending stuff to me saying, is this correct? So, I mean, there's things like that. There's, thornier questions about all the court cases that we've been involved in. There's questions about, problems in certain places. After the April election, a number of national media outlets got, collected data about, how many people voted absentee and where there were problems. There were a lot of questions about that. I regularly get phone calls from the Washington Post, the New York Times, NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN. My boss, Megan Wolf, was just on Good Morning America 3, which I think airs on Channel 19 at noon in the La Crosse area. So we're getting national, requests. I think she was on the Today Show recently. She'll probably be on NBC Nightly News sometime next week. So some of it is, setting up those sort of national interviews for her. We hear from just all kinds of, we hear from Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, just almost any kind of news website that you might hear about.
Thank you. We're getting close to the end of our time here. I'm curious, do we have statistics about what kind of turnout representation we have across different demographics in Wisconsin, urban and rural, different ethnic groups, different age groups?
So the answer is we really don't. When you register to vote in Wisconsin, you don't tell us even whether you're male or female, whether you're black, white, Asian, whatever race you might identify with, whether or not you're Hispanic. We don't know that information. We do know ages, and we know roughly we post some voter registration statistics by age groups. Generally, registered voters tend to be more in those older age cohorts, the 40 and up. But we have some numbers up on our website for 18 to 24, I think. But in terms of what percentage of people turn out to actually vote, we don't have any way of measuring that. We don't have, we just don't do that.
So when we see those kinds of statistics, that's somebody who's making estimates based upon observation or other factors.
Right. One thing, the U.S. Census does do surveys that relate to elections, but those are questions, come from questions about, did you vote in the last election? And they also ask sometimes, did you have trouble voting in the last election? And then they can, use some of the demographic information that they have about your racial or, other background. The other thing we don't do in Wisconsin is we don't register people by political party. So people ask, with, absentee ballot numbers, how many of these were Republicans and how many were Democrats? We don't know. In Wisconsin, you are whatever you say you are. And so we have a system of open primaries that goes back to the early 1900s, and Governor La Follette and the progressive movement, where they decided that instead of having railroad barons and timber barons, decide who was going to be the candidates in back rooms, that we'd have open primaries, and that you on primary day, you are whatever you say you are. You can only vote in one primary. You can only either vote in the Democratic or the Republican primary, but whatever you say you are that day, that's what you are. Other states, they make you register in advance by party, or in some states, they keep track of, did you vote in the Republican primary or the Democratic primary? We don't do that.
All right, Reed, we're about out of time. If you've got a couple of minutes, if there's anything else that you'd like to say that hasn't been brought up yet, go ahead and jump in.
I guess the only thing that I'd say is that if you haven't voted yet or haven't figured out how you're going to vote, please make a plan. Figure out, you know, the time to request an absentee ballot by mail is getting short. It can take up to 7 days to get for your clerk to send you a ballot, and then for your ballot to get back. So we're within that 14-day window, right? So, you know, think about that. Your chances are you have an opportunity to vote in-person absentee now. If you'd rather do that, you know, do that. If you're going to vote on election day, please visit our My Vote Wisconsin website so you can, you know, find out where's my polling place, what's on my ballot. Make sure that you've got your photo ID ready. If you want to know about photo ID, we've got a website called bringit.wi.gov. And it's for our Bring It to the Ballot campaign. And you can see all of the different types of IDs that are acceptable. If you don't have one, you can go to the DMV and you can get an ID for free for voting. Even if you don't have a birth certificate or you know, other documentation, bring what you have that shows your address or who you are, and the DMV will help you. They will look up your birth certificate. They will find that information and they will give you a temporary ID that you can use for voting close to the election. So there's no reason that anybody who wants to vote shouldn't be able to find some way to do it. So, you know, make a plan. But in all of these things, time is your friend. If you wait till the last minute, they may not be able to help you.
All right. Well, Reed, I want to thank you so much. And we've had several comments in the chat about how helpful this has been. So on behalf of those that are joining us online, I'm going to give you a round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Also grateful to Rick and Glenn for being part of our conversation today, and to the folks behind the scenes at English Lutheran who've made this live stream and discussion possible. And final reminder that our last community conversation for 2020 will be November 18th, and we'll be talking about COVID-19 with our local health leaders. And that's I'm sure something we're all going to be very interested in hearing about. So thank you so much for joining us today, and blessings in this season. Bye.
Bye, everybody.